Now, the military leaders of Burkina Faso and Niger Republic said on Saturday that they would quit the G5 Anti-Jihadist Force in Africa's Sahel's region, the latest blow to the fight against insurgents in the region. The G5, created in 2014, has secured only meager results, with Mali also quitting the original Five Nations force late last year in the wake of a military coup. Leaders of the 5 countries agreed to deploy a joint anti-terror task force backed by France in 2017. But the military rulers of Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali have all accused Paris of having an outsized role after years of French deployments on their territory. According to the 2 countries, it was said in a statement that they have decided in full sovereignty to quit all instances of the G5 Sahel, including the joint force, as of November 29th. According to both countries, the organization is failing to achieve its objective. Of course, to discuss this further, we are joined by Achike Chude, a global affairs analyst. Thank you so much for your time, Chude.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now let's talk about specific factors that contributed to the decision of Burkina Faso and Niger to withdraw from the G5 Anti-Jihadist Force in the Sahel region. And how might this withdrawal impact on the ongoing fight against insurgency groups in the area?
Well, it's a big one. I'm not exactly sure that the junta in the 2 countries are doing the right thing. I want to believe that they are more or less reacting to the isolation and the alienation of the political and economic isolation of these 2 countries for the military coups that they undertook in their country, that we are undertaking in those countries. So if it is not something that is organic, in the sense that it has been something in the making, in the works, and that is something they have been working towards for quite some time. It is a reaction to, like I said, the alienation by other ECOWAS countries of these 2 countries for the coups that are taking place in those countries and for their refusal to cooperate with the West African sub-regional organization in order to get back to the path of democracy. And so, if it is a reaction, which I think it is, then I'm not exactly sure that desired goals will be achieved. But then, beyond that, again, you are asking about the possible impact of this undertaking in both countries. The fight against insurgency has not exactly been a success in these 2 countries. It has not exactly been a success in all the other G5 Sahel countries. Even when some other United Nations sent a force, a peacekeeping force, to those countries, and then the French government, with their own troops, were quite active. And they were able to achieve minimal or modest successes. So without these other organizations helping out, I think it is going to be very difficult. Obviously, these countries have been under the military rule for quite some time, 2020, and then recently, the one that happened again recently in Niger. So they have not exactly achieved much success. So I'm not also sure that much success will be achieved by pulling out of a G5 Sahel.
Okay.
Because, of course, you know that there has been coordination all this while, and they were able to achieve some modest results.
Now, let's look at the role of France in supporting the joint anti-terror task force within the G5 Sahel, influence the perception and effectiveness of the alliance. Now, what grievances has been expressed by Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali regarding Paris' involvement in the region?
Yeah, well, we look, as much as some of us might not be happy with what the French did, and I would say they committed a lot of atrocities, and they continue to ensure that their former colonial, states operated as vassal states to the French government, and then the condition under which the condition of the relationship that they had with the French was embarrassing. That when some of these countries pulled out, I mean, when you had this insurgency, I mean, with this military coups in these countries, they were able to expose the malfeasance of the French government and the French, government all this while. And a lot of people, the rest of the world was really outraged that France would have this kind of conditions, impose this kind of conditions on their, former colonies. But beyond that, we must also, in spite of the grievances we might have as Africans against France's notorious policies in those countries, we must also remember that a country like Mali might have completely gone under in terms of serious capitulation under the guns of the insurgents. It was France that actually sent in thousands of troops to ensure that the insurgents were kept at bay and that Mali was not completely overrun. So they have done some good in terms of insurgency, fighting insurgency. But again, beyond that, like I said, immediately the coupists took the coupists took over control of their countries in Niger, Mali, Guinea, and some of those other places. They were able to expose the very exploitative policies of the French government, which was at variance with their avowal to work for the progress of their colonial former colonies. So it was very clear that the poverty to some extent in those countries would be traceable to the way France engaged with its former colonial states.
Okay, now before I let you go, just briefly, what are the potential implications, both positive and negative, of forming a confederation like this, particularly amongst these countries? And also, let's talk about what message does this send across to other African nations? The fact that we are beginning to see these juntas sort of form their own well, I call it alliance, so to speak, and at the same time pull out of certain alliances that they felt was not representing them?
Well, for those, alliances that they pulled out of course, there's a no love lost relationship between them and the ECOWAS, and then, of course, pulling out of the G5 Sahel. They believe that the objectives, the aims, and the purpose of the G5 Sahel had not been met in terms of the development of the countries of the G5 Sahel and in terms of the common or joint fight against insurgency, and that not much progress has been made. But beyond that again, I think another message that they are sending is a message that they are sending to the ECOWAS. And that is, don't forget that when some of these coups took place, for instance, in Mali, in Guinea, in Burkina Faso, ECOWAS was involved in some troubleshooting efforts to try to move these countries away from a continuous control by the military and to move them along the path of a transition, which was actually resisted by the juntas. Now, what this means is that they have really dug in and that they are no longer going to have any kind of relationship with ECOWAS with regards to the issue of transitioning. So as it is now, it would appear that the decision to transition to democracy is a decision that will be left with the military junta and the people of these other countries, these countries, and their citizens. So ECOWAS really, I think, has lost, absolute control over that. So these are some of the things. And then again, you look at this new alliance that they are building. Look, we've had one or two in Africa. We had the Senegambia Alliance or Confederation that did not, exactly get anywhere. And then after a few years, they had to break it apart. And then both countries, Senegal and Gambia, went their way. And so I'm not exactly sure that, like I said, it's early days here, that anything meaningful will be achieved by this. I am not exactly sure.
All right, Achike Chude.
Because they have a lot of challenges ahead of them.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Global Affairs Analyst from Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you once again.
Thank you.